Hola, bienvenidos a Lightspeed Spanish. Today we are en el campo para aprender un poco de gramática española en el campo español. Qué guapo mi campo. Today we're talking about something that's called leismo, and it's found here in this area in which I live, and it explains why we have confusions when we hear people using le when we think they're supposed to use lo. Hablamos de todo a continuación. So a couple of weeks back we did a video and we're in the countryside, Gramática en el Campo, when we talked about how to know when to use lo and how to know when to use le. And if you remember, what I said is that we use le when there's some kind of exchange going on. And we use lo when we're just giving information. There's no exchange. So for example, lo conozco, I know him. Le doy un café, I give him a coffee. However, espérate, porque la cosa se pone un poco complicada. You see, the issue that we have is that in the center of Spain, around about 20 million native Spanish people are what you call leístas, and they practice what's called el leísmo. What is el leísmo? Well, it's easy. It's using le when they normally would use lo when they're talking about a male person. Okay, that would be a man or a boy. So for example, we could say, lo conozco, I know him. Lo veo, I see him. Lo ayudo, I help him. But that wouldn't happen in the region in which I live. In fact, it wouldn't happen in the vast majority of areas in the center of Spain. They would say, le conozco, le veo, le ayudo. Why? Well, stay with me, because this makes a lot of sense. You see, if I say, lo veo, what we know is that that could be him, or it could be it. I could be talking about el pueblo, allí, and I could say, sí, lo veo. It's actually that pueblo there. And I could say, sí, lo veo, mira, hay un hombre allí, también lo veo. Okay, so when we say lo veo, it can mean it and it can mean him. The problem that leístas have is that they don't like that confusion. So they would much rather say, ah, sí, el pueblo, sí lo veo. Ah, pero el hombre, que es el pastor, por cierto, no sé si podemos verlo, el pastor, sí le veo. And so what they do is that when they're talking about a man, they say le. And it doesn't matter if there's an exchange or not. They say le so that we understand that we're talking about a man. And when they're talking about an it, they use lo. Makes a lot of sense. In fact, the Royal Academy of Spain accepts it. Well, they've got to, haven't they? When 20 million people say that, they've got to accept it. They can't say it's wrong. And so for that reason, leístas, people in the center of Spain, will say, sí, le conozco, le ayudo, le preparo un té, le mando una carta. So they will use le in all cases when we're talking about a man or a boy. It doesn't matter, a male figure. But sometimes they get a bit carried away with themselves. I've got to say it. I was once in Aldi and there was this lovely old couple and they were there looking, you know, on the shelves that they have in Aldi with all kinds of goodies that you just don't know what you're going to find in Aldi. And the woman was saying to her husband, ay, me gusta mucho esto, me gusta mucho. And he said to her, and I don't know what it was, let's just say it was a little ornament. And he said, cógetele, cógetele. Now, that to me is getting a bit carried away with the leísmo. Obviously, it was a thing, so it should have been cógetelo. But, hey, cógetele se entiende perfectamente bien. But I was surprised because obviously these things are what I pick up on. And I thought, wow, that's incredible. Cógetele. Woof. That's what we might call an extreme example. Extreme example of the use of le. But typically, if you understand leismo, then when you come to the center of Spain, or when you read books by people, authors who are from the center of Spain, for example, read a book by Miguel Delibes, and you will see the book is filled with leísmos, because he's leísta. He was anyway. Que descanse en paz. But understanding that means you don't get confused. When you see somebody say, sí, le veo. When they say le veo, you know that they're talking about a person, a male. And when they say lo veo, you know that they're talking about a thing. It makes a lot of sense. I think it's a good system. That said, in the classes that we teach, I don't teach leísmo, I talk about it. But when we give classes, my wife, my beautiful wife, she's leísta. Why? Because she comes from the center of Spain. But in the classes, she tries not to do that, just so that we get the correct system, and then understand that if you want to bolt on leísmo, like what I have, then great. So when I'm with my Spanish family in this area, I am a leísta like the best of them. And when I'm in a classroom situation, I am not a leísta. And that's the best way, I think. Y ahora voy a coger a mi perro, no sé qué está comiendo en el campo, nada bueno, eso seguro. Normalmente están comiendo caca de corzo o muchas veces caca de pastor. ¿Qué estás comiendo, Douglas? Mírale a mi perro, Douglas, con tanto calor. Y mira a Danae, allí esperándome, ella quiere ir a casa. Vamos a casa, nos vemos en el futuro con más gramática en el campo de Guadalajara. Hasta luego, adiós. Qué guapos, mira, mirándome a mí y yo mirándoles. Y eso todos los días, aquí en el campo. Todos los días vemos a los corzos y los conejos. Esto es un staring out competition. Vale, ¿quién cede? Yo no. ¡Guapos! ¡Guapos!